started. I'd like to start this morning by thanking everyone for coming out today and sharing with us this sad day with the passing of our father, my dad, Paul, our Papa. For others, it was Ken, Asu, Lojia, Jesuk, Grandpa, Uncle, however we knew him as. I would also like to apologize and acknowledge the many people, both family and friends, that are not here today, that are probably just as important to us, who would have liked to say and give their last respects for Paul. But due to circumstances beyond ours and their control, was not able to attend. As many of you know, our mother passed only away last January, so you can only imagine how much we are today in shock with the sudden passing now of our father. And like all of you, we can't believe this happened. I've been asked today to lead the service today on behalf of my brothers and sister Jeanette. As I was the last person to see him, we know he has been heartbroken and agonizing this past year, and we believe now he is finally at peace, once again, where he belongs, with the true love of his life partner, spouse, my mother, Mom. I know many of you this past year have called or dropped into Simpson Avenue to see how he was doing. And again, we can't thank you enough for caring about him and his health. Probably everybody has been asking what actually happened. In particular, and without a doubt, Jeanette and Peter have spent more time this past year, more than anybody else, caring for Paul. Shortly after Christmas and New Year, Jeanette and Peter left for Mexico, their second home. And she asked me to follow up on some doctor appointments that had been scheduled in January. I took him to Sunnybrook and to see an eye specialist, as he had recently developed some cataracts in his eyes, and his vision had been impaired as a result. We had 2 follow-up appointments in January, both the surgeon and his family doctor. His appointment was scheduled around 8 a.m. this past Tuesday. There were 3 doctors involved, the surgeon, a respiratory specialist, and an anesthesiologist. Although the sugar level was a little low due to his diabetes, within an hour and the help of an IV, he was fit to go. His blood pressure was as good as it can be expected. He was in and out of surgery in less than 10 minutes. I went to the washroom. I didn't even have time to finish the first page of the little paper that I was reading when they called me back in. He was all excited about the newfound vision, but the nurse said for us to wait about an hour before they would discharge us from the hospital. The past 2 appointments, our routine was always to go out for lunch afterwards, but under the doctor's instructions, they said just to take him straight home. On the way home, I filled his eye drop prescription and took out some lunch for him at Broadview and Gerard. He also asked me to help pick up a few groceries on the way back. Lynn and I had agreed that I would take him for the surgery, and then he would take him the next day for his follow-up appointment to review the patch. At night, after supper, June had suggested that I go give my father a call. I kept calling for about half an hour, and all I kept getting was a busy dial tone. Initially, I thought it was Chloe on the phone, so I called Lynn to get Chloe's cell phone so I could check on Paul, just to see how he was doing. Surprisingly, Lynn said that she was having an early birthday dinner with him, and said that she would be leaving shortly and to check on him when she got back. At around 10 in the evening, I got a panic call from Lynn that there was something wrong and that you better get down there. At this time, I really would like to thank the senior paramedics, the police, and the fire department for responding so quickly to the call. They did attempt CPR, and from the bottom of my heart, they tried everything they could to revive him. The paramedics, the city coroner, shortly after, and upon briefing to the coroner, their work and interviewing us, was satisfied that Paul had died from natural causes. We know that he had dinner and even watched some TV in the evening with his newfound vision, as he took off the eye patch, which he was not supposed to do until the next day. We also know that he had settled into bed in his normal sleep routine, as we found his dentures in the bathroom. It seems everything was in order before he fell asleep. It gives us all comfort to know that the time was passing, that he did not suffer very much, and passed away peacefully in bed, sleeping. I'd like to start this service the way I believe he would have wanted it, and the way we can all remember him by. So instead of mourning his loss today, we choose to celebrate his life. In his soft manner and cheerful ways, he touched each of us in his special way, humble, respectful, and always in good spirit. Whether in prayer, grievance, or tears, we all have very special and fond memories of my father, and we truly understand and respect how you wish to express your heartfelt condolences with us today. As you may know, on the site, and thanks to Funeral Homes, they provided some display frames for pictures. In addition, helped us put together a special slide DVD show, which will show forever, always on the internet for viewing after the service. Anybody who wants a copy of this CD for their own library, please contact my brother Harry. Harry is sort of the MacGyver of our family, and now has become our IT man. Due to limited space and the time, we tried to gather history of his pictures of Ken from his life starting in China and some more recent photos as he lived. I hope you will take a few minutes, if you have not already seen the pictures, to remind you of his time while he was here. Hopefully you can cherish your memories of his life. As I said earlier, without a doubt, Jeanette and Peter has spent more time this past year than anybody else caring for Paul. It is our honor to ask Peter to share with everyone Paul's life and some of his personal stories about Mom and Paul. Peter?
The French, they have a saying, déjà vu. And in this case, it really is. I stand before you today, family and friends, in this time to celebrate the life of Ken Susi, otherwise known as Paul. He was born in the province of Hong Kong, China, on January 9, 1931. Passed away peacefully in his sleep on Tuesday, February 28, 2006, at the age of 75. By the Chinese calendar and tradition, he was 78 years old. The Si family's roots in Canada run deep and actually trace back to the mid-1800s when Ken's grandfather came to Canada and worked in the West, probably on the railroad like so many at that time. Ken's father came to Canada in the early 1900s, where he settled in Saskatoon and opened up a restaurant. Ken grew up in China, and at the age of 19, in 1950, was making arrangements to join his father here in Canada. However, his father passed away that year at 48 years old. It would take Ken 2 years, 1952, before he would come to Canada and took over the restaurant in Saskatoon. He remained there in Saskatoon for 3 years, and then he returned to Hong Kong to marry his beloved Shina Ma in 1955. In 1956, he returned to Canada, sold a restaurant in Saskatoon, and moved to Mimco, or New Toronto, or Etobicoke as it's called today, and opened up a 1957, he moved to downtown Toronto and bought his first house on Henry Street. In the following year, 1958, Shinan and Lid came from Hong Kong and joined Ken in Toronto. Then things started to move quite fast. Jeanette, his only daughter, was born the following year in 1959. Henry, son number 2, followed in 1960. Harry, son number 3 in 61. And finally Perry, son number 4 in 1963. This completed the C family. Well, with all these additions, it quickly became clear to Ken that the C family had outgrown the house on Henry Street. Therefore, in 1965, they moved to Simpson Avenue, where he remained there for the next 40 years and raised his family in Riverdale. On a personal note, I came on the scene some 23 years ago, and Lid, son number 1, explained to Pa that Jeanette was seeing a man. He was Caucasian. He was 10 years older than her. And he had 3 children from a previous marriage. But Ken was not judgmental, and he accepted me into his family. While Pa was a man of few words, he was always exact and precise. He had a rating system for everything. In fact, once when he was over for supper, he rated Jeanette's meal 100%. He never gave out 100%. Remember that?
That's right.
100%. Everybody was surprised.
But he had a drink.
Yeah. He was funny that way. I remember driving with him to the casino and asking him how he felt that day. Oh, he said, oh, okay. 79%. 79%. He enjoyed his spaghetti. In fact, we take him to the Tulip and have a big plate of spaghetti. And he'd look at it and he'd say, whoa, that's a lot. But he ate it all. And then when he finished, I said, are you full? He says, oh, yeah, really full. 92%. I don't know what the other 8% was for dessert or what. Well, as you know, Paul lost Mom last year after being together for 50 years. And I think while he put on a brave front for everybody over the last year, it hurt him deeply. And now, after 406 days apart, Ken is now with his beloved Sheena again. Somehow I see them both up there smiling down on us here today, happy and content, 100%, with their accomplishments of raising their 5 children who gave them 11 wonderful grandchildren. I know Pa's 100% happy now.
Henry Street, the mayor of Simpson Avenue. Paul was known as the mayor of Simpson Avenue for the past 40 years. He pretty much knew everybody who came and later moved on to Simpson Avenue. Anytime he was walking neighbors and friends alike, he would always exchange pleasantries and hellos. As many of you know, while growing up, our house was always an open house to everyone. MJ Mahjong was excused for dropping in, but in reality, it was their way of providing social entertainment for his family and his friends. Like many of you, we all have special memories growing up. My father was always a hardworking man. I remember while growing up, most of the time he was working late into the night, but often when we woke up, there was a box of donuts from Country Style and some milk that he had poured for us. He bought his first house on Henry Street, which is just off of College and Call. That was probably the real beginning of his wide friendship and why we have such a big circle of family and friends today. Almost everyone at one time or another of our many uncles, aunts at one time or another found some refuge and a place to stay. In some cases, it was for meals that Ma had used to provide for them when they were still adjusting to life in Canada and struggling to make ends meet. In other cases, they helped out to those who were just starting new families, like my cousin Tony's parents and Kenny's parents. When I was about 4 or 5, we moved to Simpson Avenue, and I can still remember when we first moved in, playing in the basement with a small orange tractor that had been left behind in the basement. Back then, we were one of the first Chinese to move into the neighborhood, which is now today known as Riverdale. Surprising, one of our original neighbors on Henry Street somehow found their way as well, the Clarks. I won't touch that or go into that. Shortly thereafter, others would follow. One of the first was Dun Suk and Dun Sim, who was 2 houses over. Dun Suk has known Paul since his childhood, where he used to cut across their backyard in China. Subsequently, when Paul left to Hong Kong, Dun Suk was not far behind. Then he followed to Saskatoon and again in Toronto. Broadway and Gerard, as many of you know, eventually became the third to the Chinatown as we know it today. Our house on Simpson Avenue, as everyone knows, became the lighthouse. If ever you were trying to find someone until recently, after passing Ma last year, it was always kind of a treat for us growing up on Simpson Avenue with so many people dropping in, because we had so many aunts and uncles, and every time they dropped in, they would always bring us some candies and treats or pastries for us. Ma and Paul, back then, played mahjong, but no matter who actually had won, as a bonus on their way out, they used to always give us some spare change before they left. It was sort of like these days when you're at a casino, and just on your way out to empty your pockets of your loonies and toonies in the slot machine. Except for us, when we were small, it was like hitting the jackpot every time. Back then, with the change, you could buy a pop, Dr. Pepper, for about 10 cents, Humpty Dumpty bag of chips for Lola for 5 cents, or you could go crazy with the pocket change and buy candies. I remember Mojos were like 2 or 3 for a penny. The C family today continues to grow. I still remember in the early days, there used to be 4 or 5 listings in the Toronto telephone book. Today, there are probably over 200 listings. On Wednesday, while we were waiting at Lid's house for Jeanette and Peter to call, Sherman, Tony's dad, received an exciting call that he was blessed with the news of his first grandson from his daughter, Faith. So congratulations. Some memories and toys and trips that we experienced while we were younger. Unlike our kids of today, where they have so much material toys and gifts that it actually loses meaning and value. Back when we were growing up, we had to make up our own games and toys in order to pass the time. It had to be a real special day to get a real and a new toy. Or for us to go on what we considered back then a family outing. Now I'm not talking about taking a family trip to Mexico or to Florida. For us back then, a big family trip was to Onzed's or Jibugaisi, Kensington Market as we know it today, the CNE or Central Island. As kids, I remember he took us to McDonald's, and it really was a treat back then. Unlike today, where McDonald's or other fast foods is around every corner and it's not part of your normal diet. I remember it was about 30 minutes drive somewhere off the Don Valley, because I remember when you looked out, you always see the city skyline in the distance. Now, I remember when Paul started his second business, and he bought our first family's car. I think it was called Comet. It looked like a small Mustang. Later on, he moved up to a Torino, like the one that's used in the Starsky Hutch. He told me last month, although he hadn't driven for 10, maybe 20 years, that his license was up for renewal, but he decided not to renew it. do not disturb. Lived, as many of you know, was not an easy teenager for Mon Paul, but he always gave them the greatest respect any parent could ever ask, despite developing his own personality, character, and beliefs. There's no question he has taken the best traits from Mon Paul, which is loyalty, honesty, and integrity. Because Paul often worked late at night, we had to be especially quiet in the morning. I can only imagine now how much we must have pissed him off as kids, because when we heard his heavy footsteps moving on the second floor, we either ran or pretended to be quiet as a mouse.